So we have the WBIT bracket here. So we have the semifinals. We had the first semifinal was Columbia and Wisconsin. That was at 3 tournament on ESPN. That was at a 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central game at the Charles Koch Arena in Wichita, Kansas, home of the Wichita State Shockers. And that is 2:30 and 5 East, 1:30 and 4 local time. And the reason why it's on ESPNU is they could have it like at different days, you know. I mean, they could have it like different days of the week. Like they could have it like Tuesday, you know, or they could have it like Wednesday, you know, or they could have it Thursday. But the NCAA sports calendar is kind of all locked up. Like Friday, they don't want to take over the Final Four for the women. I mean, they could have it Saturday, like the Final Four for the men. Like have it where before the Final Four for the men, you know, is on maybe in the afternoon. Maybe and then have it, you know, I could see that. But then, you know, have it like back-to-back days. I could see that. But then again, you know, taking around the NCAA tournament, you know, you could have it like Tuesday, Thursday. You could have it Tuesday, Thursday. But then the men's championship for that, you know, is on Sunday night. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard though what day you could do it, you know. But or you could do it Tuesday, Wednesday. You could do that like back-to-back days they play. Tuesday, Wednesday. You know, one semifinal maybe at 6 Eastern, the other semifinal at 8:30 Eastern. You could do that. That would actually be a good time. Like 5 and 7:30 local. That would actually be perfect though. You have back-to-back days. You play back-to-back days. You know, it's like for, you know, maybe like, oh well, we're growing the tournament. You know, we're growing the game. You know, it's kind of one of those things. I could see that. But also they want it as, you know, but I think the NCAA is doing it. It's not necessarily like a high in-person attendance. That's not what they're aiming for with this. I think they're more aiming for a good TV viewership crowd that, you know, what is at home, that can't, you know, doesn't have a team either. Doesn't have a team in the Elite Eight for the women's side, you know. So there's like no need for a team, you know. You know what I mean? Like they feel like, oh hey, we have no team in like the NCAA women's. We have no team in the NCAA Elite Eight, you know, or you know we don't have tickets. Maybe we're close to the Elite Eight, you know, so a 10, you know, within reasonable driving distance, a 10 as a neutral, you know, not like that. So I think they're banking on a lot of those people actually just, you know, wanting a fix of college basketball and wanting like a little teaser before the men's, before like the women's, the women's term is on. Like men's and women's fans that are both fans of either the men's and the women's, or fans of just women's basketball. You know, they want them to actually watch the games as like a teaser to the Elite Eight teams. You know, like they're trying, and kind of like it's treated as like a secondary status for the NCAA in before, you know, it's treated as a secondary status. Because I mean, you could do Tuesday, Wednesday night, but then they have the girls McDonald's All American games for the high school. You know, so I don't know. I mean, ESPN. I mean, if ESPN send that day, yeah, it kind of gets like, you know, and you know, I don't know. I mean, they could do like the college basketball crown does it, you know, for the men, and they do back-to-back days. Like I could see Tuesday, Wednesday. ESPN2, Tuesday maybe 5 and 7:30. Or the men or the All American games say are on ESPNU or on ESPN. I could see that, and then and then I could see that. But I'm kind of surprised. But it is what it is. But anyways, we have Columbia defeats Wisconsin 67-50. Columbia played close with me. It was close to Wisconsin early, but then Columbia just had a more dominating in that later in the game. They just dominated Wisconsin. Especially in that second quarter into like the third quarter and in the second half. Like Columbia just dominated that one. BYU and Kansas. Kansas beat BYU by 21 in the regular season matchup in the Big 12 conference. That was the last time they played each other. Was the regular season of the Big 12 in the Big 12 conference play. And because every team plays at least each other one time. Even at these big conferences, you at least play everyone one time in conference play. But they've made up a second time in the Women's Basketball Invitational Tournament. And BYU gets the better of Kansas this time by 3 at a neutral site. 70-67. So it's going to be Columbia facing BYU for the Women's Basketball Invitational Tournament. And if you win the second year tournament, the Women's Basketball Invitational Tournament, it's actually been a good stepping ground for the NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament. Like Illinois, the first year it was in 2024 was the first one for the 23-24 season. It was the first ever tournament for that season, and Illinois won the first ever tournament in that, and then in the WBIT the second year, Minnesota won that, and Illinois has made it to the NCAA tournament with Minnesota this year after not making the NCAA tournament in like a long while, like a good bit of time actually. They won the WBIT. They made it to the Sweet 16 this year. So I mean, yeah, it is a stepping stone before, like the Women's National Invitation Tournament. They couldn't use the word invitational like the men do, so they want to use National Invitation Tournament. The NC may have it trademarked because it's like a third party thing. So they just so that used to be like a good thing tournament, like a big 60-14 tournament, and like if you won that, if you were to say like a team with like a new coach that was up and coming, coach, like hey, it's his or her first year at the program, at like the school, who's and you might make it to it's kind of like Stanford with like Tar Vanderveer. They're making like their own way in the WBIT, the Basketball Invitation Tournament. They made it in the last year in that tournament. This year they made it a lot farther in the tournament. Or it's Tennessee without Pat Summitt. Or it might be when Gino Rama returns from UConn. Or like another good one, like this year we had, like before the season started, we had Jose Fernandez from the University of South Florida. He went to coach in the WNBA for the Dallas Swings. Or Carlos Semesco, like Florida Gulf Coast. That's coaching the Land Dream. Florida Gulf Coast University. So you have like that, It happens at all levels, like smaller division levels. Maybe Division 3 move up to Division 2 as a coach, how do they rebound, It's all levels, like high school. You have a legend high school coach. So I don't know. So I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, the winner is the championship game is going to be BYU and Columbia and Charles Country, Wichita, Kansas at the at Wichita State University at Wichita State, and they wanted to do it. Now they had the men's national invitational tournament, the NIT. They had that to where it was it was at like Madison Square Garden forever. I think it was like permanently there at Madison Square Garden, pretty much. Was that like in there, and it might have been at like a few other like big time arenas across the country, but I think but primarily it was Madison Square Garden. And then they moved it to where I thought maybe they're gonna travel it around and maybe move it to other like big time places like maybe Las Vegas. Maybe they have that one where they play like NBA Summer League or like NBA Cup games there. And I played NBA games there. I thought, that would be a great place for it. Or maybe like there's other big meccas for like college basketball. Maybe like Los Angeles, like Staples Center. That could be a good one. Or what other places are like women's basketball or men like basketball like hotbeds. Like what I'm saying. Just other college basketball hotbeds in the country. Other places that are like big, huge college basketball areas, or they could have it, at like other areas. And I think it's just like a bidding thing now where like you bid on it, like you make the bid, on it, and like you select like why you think you should host the WBIT and the NIT for the men. And you have to have a dual bid for it. You can't just say I want to host just the men's games. No, you have to host both. I like that, because then it really puts like I like that, like the tournaments, tournaments, at the same site, puts like, you know, them at equal playing fields more. I mean, yes, the women's are first. Yes, they actually have the women's game. They could have it like, or they could have it Wednesday, Saturday. I didn't think about that. Like Saturday before the men's game for the men's final four. They could have that too. I didn't think, and before the women's NIT championship. I could see that, but they don't. So I don't know. It is what it is, but that's it. But so that's it. It's been a long enough video. So and Wednesday is the championship game of the WBIT 26 WBIT. Can whoever wins this, can they make a run in the NCAA tournament before? I know BYU has made it in the tournament as a member of West Coast Conference when they had Shaylee Gonzalez before she transferred to Texas. Paisley Harding. I remember that like stout team. It was like a pretty stacked team. I remember BYU in like near like top 25 or top 25 stats. Like they were good. They were like stacked. So